Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Come along. Today we're about to learn about voter suppression. Now, one would think that voting should be as easy and accessible as possible, and in many cases it is. But in recent years, more than 400 anti-voter bills have been introduced in the United States. Keep in mind, there's 50 nifty United States and the 13 original colonies. These bills erect unnecessary barriers for people to register to vote, vote by mail, or vote in person. Now, voter registration restrictions can be one of the most common forms of voter suppression. Restrictions can include requiring documents to prove citizenship or identification, onerous obstacles for voter registration drives, or limiting the window of time in which voters can register. Also, take into account that there is criminalization of the ballot box taking place as well. Some states are discouraging voter participation by imposing arbitrary requirements and harsh penalties on voters and poll workers who violate these rules. In Georgia, lawmakers have made it a crime to provide food and water to voters standing in line at the polls. Keep in mind, it's Georgia. Georgia already seems overpopulated, so you know the lines are notoriously long, especially for communities of color. In Texas, where everything's bigger in Texas, people have been arrested and given outrageous sentences for what amount at most to innocent mistakes made during the voting process. And you know they want to make it harder because back in the day, we weren't even considered a whole man. 3/5. Because of racism in law enforcement and the broader criminal legal system, criminalization of the ballot box disproportionately impacts people of color who are more likely to be penalized. This method of voter suppression aims to instill fear in communities of color and suppress their voices in the democratic process. Have you guys ever heard of the term gerrymandering? Me either. Every 10 years, states redraw district lines based on population data gathered in the census. Legislators use these district lines to allocate representation in Congress and state legislatures. When redistricting is conducted properly, district lines are redrawn to reflect population changes and racial diversity. But too often, states use redistricting as a political tool to manipulate the outcome of elections. That's called gerrymandering, a widespread undemocratic practice that's stifling the voices of millions of voters. Now, I bet you're wondering, who's affected by voter suppression? The short answer is all of us. Our democracy is debased when the vote is not accessible for all. But the fact that some groups are disproportionately affected by voter suppression tactics, including people of color, young people, and the elderly, as well as people with disabilities, the proof is in the numbers. It's gotta stop. Pause to read some facts and stats. So before you tell me to stop acting like it's in the past, reconsider your request before I make a mess.